penetrated oceanic depths. All of this is a dazzling picture of modern man's scientific and technological progress. But what I want to say to you tonight, my friends, is that when we look to the other side, something basic is missing. We suffer from a kind of poverty of the spirit, which stands in glaring contrast to our scientific and technological abundance. We've learned to swim the seas like fish and to fly the air like birds, and yet we have not learned the simple art of walking the earth as brothers and sisters. And this is the great dilemma facing America. And you know, it comes to this point now. We must all learn to live together as brothers, or we will all perish together as fools. Now, there are three things that we must deal with if we are going to transform this neighborhood into a brotherhood. We've got to deal with the problem of racism. We've got to deal with the problem of economic injustice or poverty. And we've got to deal with the problem of war. Now, let me start out talking about racism. And more, we've got to tell the truth to America about this problem. And the truth means saying to our nation that the roots of racism are very deep in America, and they are still here.
I'm about to cash a $50,000 check for an accident I was involved in over 5 months ago. The same accident.
And that racial injustice is still the black man's burden and the white man's shame. Now, admittedly, we've made some strides, we've made some progress, but this shouldn't cause any of us to become apathetic or lax or complacent. For me, we must recognize that the plant of freedom has grown only a bud and not yet a flower. And the problems that we face are still very serious. Now, we hear a lot of talk these days about the so-called white backlash. I want to tell you what the white backlash really is. It's nothing new. It's merely a new name for an old phenomenon. It is a continued expression of the same vacillation, the same ambivalence that's characterized white society from the very founding of this nation. On the Statue of Liberty, we read that America is the mother of exiles. But it doesn't take us long to realize that America has been the mother of its white exiles from Europe. She has not evinced the same maternal care and concern for her black exiles who were brought to this country in chains from Africa. And it is no wonder that our slave foreparents could think about it, and they could start singing in a beautiful soul song, in a beautiful sorrow song. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. It was this sense of estrangement and rejection that caused our forebears to use such a metaphor. You see, what has happened is that our nation has constantly made a positive step forward on civil rights, but it has usually simultaneously made a step backwards. There has never been a single, solid, determined commitment on the part of the vast majority of white Americans on the question of genuine equality for the black man. In 1863, the Negro was freed from the bondage of physical slavery through the Emancipation Proclamation. But he wasn't given any land to make that freedom meaningful. And you know, it was something like having a man unjustly imprisoned for 30 or 40 years, and suddenly you discover that he's innocent, that he's been unjustly jailed for 30 or 40 years, and then you simply go up to the man and say, now you are free. But you don't give him any bus fare to get to town. You don't give him any money to buy any clothes to put on his back. You don't give him any money to get on his feet so that he can rise up once more as a man. But this is what happened to the black man in America. And we must remember this, that at the very same time when America refused to give the black man anything, just said you're free, he was left penniless, illiterate, standing out in a situation not knowing what to do and where to go. But we must not forget that at the same time the Negro was being treated like this, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest. It says that our country was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But it refused to undergird its black peasants who were brought here in chains from Africa with an economic floor. And so emancipation for the Negro was freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without a roof over their heads, freedom without bread to eat, freedom without land to cultivate. It was freedom and famine at the same time. And it is a miracle that the Negro has survived. But the white backlash didn't stop there. In 1875, the nation passed the Civil Rights Bill and refused to enforce it. In 1964, the nation passed an even weaker Civil Rights Bill, and even to this day has failed to enforce it in all of its dimensions. In 1954, the Supreme Court declared segregation unconstitutional in the public schools. Today, less than 10% of the Negro students of the South are attending integrated schools, which means that we have made 1% progress a year, and if it continues at this rate, it will take another 94 years to integrate the schools. Suburban politicians talk eloquently against open housing, and at the same time, or in the same breath, they contend that they are not racist. All of this tells us, my friends, that the white backlash is nothing new. The fact is that America has been backlashing on the question of genuine equality for the black man for more than 300 years. And this is something that we must realize and that we must see. And this is why I say to you that our job is still difficult. We still need your voices. We still need your support. And there isn't any way to solve this problem without pressure. There isn't any way to solve the problem of racial injustice without persistent, nonviolent pressure. There have been those who felt that it could be done another way. There was a great man in our history, and I do not come to you to criticize him tonight, because I think he was a sincere man. His name was Booker T. Washington. Mr. Washington believed that the problem could be solved through pressureless persuasion. He sincerely felt that. He felt that if you didn't push things too fast and if you didn't bother the white South, if you didn't try to make the white man do something that he didn't want to do at that particular time, he would ultimately come around. Mr. Washington sincerely felt this, but he misread history. He did follow that approach. He started saying everything that the white people wanted to hear. He was honored for it. He was called the responsible leader. You know, I always get a little worried when I'm referred to as a responsible leader, because so often when some people call you a responsible leader, they are really telling you that you are a leader who will not tell the truth on behalf of your people. So often they mean that you are a leader more concerned about your budget than you are concerned about the freedom of your people. So often they really mean that you are a leader willing to say to the white power structure what they want to hear rather than what they ought to hear. Booker T. Washington went on with the notion of pressureless persuasion. And the reactionary forces of the white South used that only to plunge deeper into the oppression of the Negro. He told us to let our buckets down where we were, and the problem was that there wasn't much water in the well. And somewhere we must come to see that we must rise up and stand on our own 2 feet and say to our white brothers that we are determined to be men. This is what the movement is saying. We are somebody. We are determined to gain our freedom. And we are going to start with ourselves by freeing our own psyche, our own souls. This is where we've got to start first. For you see, in the final analysis, if we're going to be truly free, nobody else can do that for us. No Lincolnian Emancipation Proclamation can do that for us. No Johnsonian Civil Rights Bill can do that for us. If we are going to be truly free, we must reach down into the inner depths of our being and sign with the pen and ink of assertive manhood our own Emancipation Proclamation. And we must come to say, yes, I'm black, but I'm black but beautiful. I'm somebody. I have a rich and noble heritage, however exploited and painful it has been. And I've made a contribution to this history. And so the responsibility is broad and it is wide. There's need now for repentance. And this is the only way that we're going to transform this neighborhood into a brotherhood. Now, the final thing I want to talk about, and I've talked longer than I expected, but I've got to bring this out. I believe in telling the truth. We're going to transform this neighborhood into a brotherhood. We've got to get rid of war. John Fitzgerald Kennedy said on one occasion that mankind must put an end to war. A war will put an end to mankind. And there's a war taking place today in a little Asian country.
Yes. I'm so proud to be of the seed of one of the great personalities of the 20th century and of all times. We all must give thanks to Martin Luther King Jr. And he lived beyond his 39 years that he was on this earth. He would have been 95 years today. And you heard him. He said, "Black is beautiful." So many of you would have heard "I Have a Dream" speech today. And I deliberately did not play "I Have a Dream" because King was a dreamer. But he was more than a dreamer. He was a bad brother. If there wasn't a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., perhaps you and I would not be here today. I see some of our Indian brothers and sisters here tonight who are saying it's an American holiday today. Well, let me tell you all something. Take it from me. It's a black man's holiday today, a black woman's holiday. It's a black holiday today. And if you don't want to be here, just go where you belong. You don't tell us what our holiday is. Good evening to you and welcome to Politics 101, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It's our day. It's a black holiday, universal holiday. It's an holiday for all humanity. If ever oratory influenced the revolution, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Good evening to all of you joining us from Guyana. Good evening to all of you who are joining us from outside of Guyana. It's good to be alive today. King died. King was murdered 56 years ago so that we could be alive today to tell the story and to continue the struggle. In many regards, the struggle that he led and for which his life was snatched away. Many aspects of that struggle are still with us today. In the United States of America, in the Caribbean, in our Guyana, wherever African people are, wherever black people are, the struggle for justice, the struggle for equality that Dr. King so eloquently talked about is a real struggle. A real struggle. A real struggle. Good evening to all of you joining us from the United States of America. Those of you who are joining us from Canada, from Europe, from Africa, wherever you're joining us from tonight. It's a significant day, and it is good to be alive. Dr. Martin Luther King's Day. We honor and we remember Dr. King because in doing so, we are remembering all of our ancestors, all of our ancestors, all those who struggled for
Live streaming can be tricky, and sometimes trying to find the right software.
Here's a story about a man who once walked this land, I think for many, many years. And people keep asking, Stalin, all the time you come in New York and you doesn't want to sing this one. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we want to just turn the hands of the clock back and do a special one that we call a tribute to a man called Reverend Martin Luther King. Never lived by a gun, but yet died by one. This man, Martin Luther King, senior son, a gentleman of great capability, who never knew the meaning of the word enemy, but a man who devoted his life to fight that all American Negroes must get civil rights. I say his works must be continued although he's dead. So people don't forget the great things that Martin said. Leave your guns at home. Don't walk with weapons. Violence cannot solve the situation. We want the whites to know. Believe wholeheartedly. We want them as our friends and not as enemy. For as enemy would bring riot in this land. And that would not be good for no American. Call him a genius, a messiah, or different things. But I say Martin was a king of all. From Texas to Florida, New York City, yes, and even Georgia. The entire Negro population, yes, they had Martin Luther King as their champion. A man that stood tall and have no fear and gave more than 350 speeches a year. But how can we forget this blessed day? In the Civil Rights March, listen what he said. He said, I have a dream, I have a vision, and this is what Martin made them to understand. In his vision, this is what he see. One day black and white would be living so happy. Little black children and little white children one day walk in the streets of America as friends. From the Black Hills of Dakota to Mississippi, hand in hand in racial equality. A man that all the world considered as wise, a man that was awarded a Nobel Peace Prize. Violence was never his way to fight, but with several prison terms for civil rights. I remember one good day in Mississippi when a reporter put a question to him, why must American Negroes get civil rights? And this was his answer to my delight. We till their cotton fields and give their pockets more wealth. Mind their babies and have them in the best of health. Took part in the Olympic. Don't care if we die. Just to keep the stars and strike flying high. Uphold democracy in and out of this land. From Germany to the foxhole of Vietnam, all this we did for America, so faithful and true. Tell me why we can't eat this. But now Martin Luther is dead and gone. But I say that his good works must go on. For his business was then left entirely in the hands of his wife, Reverend Abernathy. And these two then work wholeheartedly just to make Martin dreams a reality. I say if not the whole, but a part at least. Show the world where black and white could live in peace. So good luck, Mistress King. All blessing to you. Trin Begonia say success in anything you do. Though it may take some time, one should keep asking. They must judge a man by his heart and not his skin. Remember, Martin also said that time is nothing, but only how man use time. Could time then be something? So don't forget the song of your dear husband that says, we shall overcome, we shall overcome.
From one black man to another black man, the Black Stallion, singing about Martin Luther King Jr. from our Caribbean to our brothers and sisters in America. One struggle, one struggle, one struggle, the Pan-African struggle, the black struggle. Martin Luther King Jr., we are remembering him today because this is his day, this is our day. A giant among giants, a giant among giants, celebrating him in word and song. And we in Guyana are continuing that struggle because in many ways, the obstacles are still in our way. Good evening to all of you. Good evening to my brother Orin Newton, Turkey, Boomba, from Buxton, and all the Buxtonians on, all the beautiful black people on, all the beautiful black friends who are on here. It's our day today because we're remembering a giant. And it gives me great pleasure as a little black boy from a little village, coming from humble background, to be able to stand there today and to speak to the world about our brother. You must never forget our history. Must never forget our accomplishments. Dr. King died at age 39 in 1968, just 39. Malcolm X died when he was 40 in 1965. Our own Walter Rodney died when he was 38. Bob Marley asked, how long will they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it, but we've got to fulfill that book. So can't you sing with me some redemption songs? Redemption songs to redeem ourselves and to stand firm. And we are standing firm today. We are standing firm today. The other morning, I said that African Guyanese are being beaten up economically, beaten up politically, beaten up psychologically. But I said we are not taking blows. And I knew where I was going. Some of our listeners took a little bit issue because they said we're taking blows. They're sharing blows. But it doesn't mean that African Guyanese are taking the blows. We are being beaten up. But we are fighting back. We are fighting back with the words of Dr. King. We are fighting back with everything. We are fighting back in the dark. We are fighting back in the light. Never surrender. Never surrender. We shall overcome. We have overcome before. Never surrender. And the reason I made the distinction between being beaten up and taking blows is because I wanted to make the point that today we may be down, but tomorrow we're going to be up. And we're always fighting back. We've always been fighting back from the Middle Passage, from the shores of Africa. We've always been fighting back. That's why they've called us Maroons. The latest addition to the West Indies cricket team is a Maroon. Shamar Joseph from Barakara, a Maroon community. We are Maroons. We all are Maroons because we didn't take blows. We fought back. And I want you all to make that distinction between being beaten up and taking blows. They may knock us down sometimes, but they will never and must never be allowed to knock us out. Let us make the distinction here, because Dr. King made that distinction. Some of us will live to see that beautiful shore. Some of us must live to see that beautiful shore. The days are dark in Guyana for us. They're reading a budget today. There's not going to be much in there for us as black people, as poor people. But budgets must not be allowed to kill us. Remember, Claude McKay said, if we must die, then let us nobly die. That even the monsters we now defy shall be constrained to honor us, though dead. But though lies before us the open grave, with our backs to the wall, dying, but fighting back. We are never, ever going to take blows and give up. That we ought to be certain. And Martin Carter said, this is what they do with me: cut out the sun, cut out the world, darken the flower, stifle my breath, and hope that I die. But I laugh for them. I laugh because I know tigers don't think, nor toads, nor rooting swine, only man. Just listen and you will know. In South Africa, they drink the blood of black women. In Malaysia, the hero is hunted and shot like a dog. Here, they watch us and lick their tongues like beasts who crouch to prey on a little child. But I warn them, like a tide from the heart of things, inexorably and inevitably a day will come. And when that day comes, I will come alive again and laugh again and walk out of this prison. Our brother Martin Carter, the poets, the Calypsonians, the reggae singers, the dancers, they always make sense of our condition. Give us hope. Our own Eddie Grant. Give me hope, Joanna. Give me hope. Then you say you're taking blows. You're giving up hope. You're being beaten up. They're sharing blows, but you're not taking blows. In Dr. King's words, he said, no Lincolnian Emancipation Proclamation, no Johnsonian Civil Rights Bill will free us. We only will be freed when we emancipate ourselves. And that's what we come here every day. And we'll continue to do that. Good evening, Brother George. Good evening, Brother Dennis Atwell. Good evening, Charles. There comes a time in the life of any nation when you're left with but two choices. I'm quoting here from Nelson Mandela when they were about to throw him in prison. There comes a time in the life of any nation when you're left with but two choices: submit or demand. We ain't submitting, we are demanding. There was a time when the Indian Guyanese cried out that she was oppressed, he was oppressed. There was a time when the power of the state lay in the hands of African Guyanese, and Indian Guyanese wept. And we went and we wept with them. I was there. I gave up my liberty for that struggle. There was a time when the Indian Guyanese said they were being oppressed. We didn't ask how, when, and where, but we went there and we stood with them. And today, the power of the state, the iron fist of the state, is in the hands of Indian Guyanese who are hammering African Guyanese. And in the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King, we have got to go by the rivers of Babylon, where they wept, and weep with them, and struggle with them. And that's what I'm doing. And to hell with those who call me racist. You didn't call me racist when I wept by the Ganges with Indians who were struggling. But you call me racist when I go by the rivers of Babylon and weep with my own people. What kind of being are you? Hypocrites and parasites, Brother Bob says. When we cried and wept with East Indians, Brother Walter Rodney, Hoini Kwame, Edward Dublin gave their lives. Many of us went to jail. When Indian Guyanese raised their voices and said we are being oppressed, we stood with them. And today, when the hammer is in the hand of an Indian Guyanese, clique, murderous clique, and we go down by the rivers of Babylon and weep with our people and struggle with our people. They call us racist. And some of you black people get into that nonsense. I don't care. Dr. King, on the night before he died, he said, I fear no man. I fear no man. I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land. And I may not get there with you, but you, my people, will get there. How many more times can a man die? Black Stallion asked. How many times can a man die? I die on the shores of Africa. I died in 1938 with Butler. I died in the square in 1970 with Dagger. And for us in Guyana, I will say, I died on the slave plantations. I died with coffee in 1763. I died with Damon. How many times can a man die? This struggle is real in Guyana. And I want you all to treat it as a real thing. Black people have got to get dreaded than dread. You all will have to make up your own minds in 2024. This is not sustainable. And what the PPP is doing must not be allowed to be sustainable. Guyana belongs to us too, all of us. Yes, by the rivers of Babylon, where we sat down and where we wept, when we remembered Zion, let the words of our mouth, the meditation of our hearts, fuel our struggle. This is 2024. 2023 is gone. And we've got to make up our minds. Guyana is too crooked a place. It has to be straightened, and if it has to be straightened, it will be those who are feeling the crack of the whip the most. Everyone is feeling the crack of the whip. There's no doubt about that. But our darkest citizens are feeling it the most. And he or she who feels it knows it. Good evening to all you all. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. Politics 101, where we are doing it tonight. Share the link. They say it's budget today, but for a budget day today, but for us, it's Martin Luther King Day. It's our day. It's a day to reflect, it's a day to remember, it's a day to plan, and it's a day to execute plans. Fear is gripping the Black community. But we've beaten fear before and we've got to beat it again. Fear is a sin. Once you succumb to fear, you give up everything that you have. You give up your dignity. You give up your ability to stand up as human beings and to say, no, 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 it is wrong. I repeat, when our brothers and sisters from India wept by the Ganges and they cried out for the world, we were there with them. And today, when our African brothers and sisters are crying out, when we look around, we don't see others. We don't see those from our brothers and sisters from the other races coming to our rescue. No, 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 we don't. And that is why people like myself must stand up unequivocally. We must not equivocate. We must be unequivocal. We must not allow ourselves to speak in scattered tongues. Because we once stood when others cried out. And we were clear then, and we have to be clear now. I know if one says I am pro-Indian, people translate that to mean anti-African. Or if one says one is pro-African, people translate that to mean that you're anti-Indian. That's their business. I am not going to be able to change that. They do that for their own nefarious reasons. I am not walking around and trying to prove that I'm not anti-Indian. I don't have that time and energy. Let my words, let my actions speak. I am not waking up in the mornings and say, before I speak out and speak up about African oppression, I must frame it in such a way that I don't offend my Indian brothers and sisters. I don't have time for that. Because there was a time when Indians were crying. We didn't ask whether we are offending Africans. We stood by them, stood with them, struggled with them. And today you ask me for validation. One African in doing that. Sometimes you have to be fiercely clear. How many times can a man die? How many times you can call me racist? We are at a crossroads in our country. We have always been at a crossroads. But we are at a different crossroad in this time because we are now a petro state. We are flushed with money that we never had before. We have a government that has unlimited money in Guyanese terms. And that is why this crossroads is a different crossroad. It's a different crossroad. And we've got to decide how we're going to deal with this crossroads or this crossroad. People today talk about multiracialism. Tell me, show me where the multiracialism is in Guyana. Show me. We are less multiracial today than we were 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Indians are hunkered down behind the PPP. They've made that decision in what they see as their own interests. And who am I to tell them that it is against their interest to support the PPP? I will not be so presumptuous. They have made that decision. I don't think it will always be so. There have been times in the past where Indians have deviated from the PPP. But they've hunkered down behind the PPP. And they're clear in their mind, never PNC, never PNC. That's what they're clear about, never PNC. Show me the multiracialism. If one race hunkers down in the bunker behind its racial party, why am I going to be so foolish to go to the other race and tell them about multiracial? To have multiracial, you have to have both races struggling together, fighting together, identifying one enemy together. My brother Walter Rodney used to say, struggle in action. There was a time in the 1970s when I came into politics in the 1980s, when there was a multiracial movement, and there could have been multiracial parties. because there was a multiracial hunger. There was a multiracial feeling. But if Africans are hunkered down in their bunker, behind their racial party or parties, why am I going to Indians and tell them about multiracialism? Sometimes we get ourselves twisted in knots. What we need in Guyana is a multiracial movement that is grounded in multiracial policies. That's what we need. The PPP has a right to bury itself in the Indian community. What it doesn't have a right to do is to take all the money, all the resources, all the power of the state and give it to the Indian section of the community. I don't care whether the PPP is a multiracial party or not. That's their business. What I care is whether your policies are multiracial. I don't care if the PNC is multiracial or not. That's their business. What I care is when they put their hands on the power of the state, that their policies are multiracial. And I, David Hines, will never support any government that discriminates against any race group. I have never supported a black government that discriminated against Indians and Amerindians, and I'm never going to support an Indian government that discriminates against Africans and Amerindians. I'm clear about that. So what we need are multiracial policies. The policy of cash transfer to deal with the question of poverty. You see, we talk about cost of living. And there's going to be a cost of living rally this weekend called by the opposition. And we're going to be talking about that during this week. And we are of the view that cost of living can be mitigated by better wages. Better wages. The government don't set prices. Prices are set by the market. But what the government can do is ensure that there are better wages, better wages, better wages. .5% to 54,000 public servant workers. That is not going to help the cost of living situation. We, the people, are not going to be able to do anything about the prices of pumpkin in the market. But if we get better wages, we are going to be able to afford the pumpkin in the market, the price of pumpkin in the market. The government responsibility is to put in place policies to deal with cost of living. And cost of living varies. The cost of living in Berbice is not the same as the cost of living in Linden. If Berbice produces rice and produces vegetables and fruits and so on, the prices there in Berbice are going to be better than the prices in Linden. This doesn't produce rice and greens and vegetables. So the prices are going to be higher there. What is the government doing about easing prices in Linden. Talk to me. $54,000 public servants, most of them are African Guyanese. You give them 6.5% pay raise. In effect, when you look at the cost of living, that 6.5% is a decrease. Where is the cost of living allowance for the people of Georgetown and East Coast and Linden and wherever the prices are high? Where is the COLA? Where is the cost of living allowance? That's what I'm looking for in the budget. We've got to talk the truth. That's what Dr. King said. Talk the truth. My party has put a proposal on the table. It's not novel. We say take 10% of the oil takings and distribute it among the 220 households. Whatever that comes up to, when it comes up to $300,000 or $500,000 or $1 million, you give it to them. That will cushion their income and help them to overcome the cost of living. Don't go and give them a $20,000 a year and a $15,000 a year. Put it in the law that every year you will take 10% of the takings from oil and give it to each household, regardless of race, regardless of class. If the rich people get it, it will be added income to their high income, and they will pay it in taxes, pay the extra in taxes. We are saying, give us a universal basic income. Let the Guyanese people be guaranteed an income, a basic income. That's the only way we can deal with the cost of living. We are not asking the government to bring down the prices. Let me be clear about that. We are not asking the government to bring down the prices. Yes, the government can do some things to bring down prices, but there's no guarantee of that. You can give some goodies to the businesses with the hope that when you give them the goodies, it will bring down the price. They take the goodies and they don't bring down the prices. So we're not going down that route. We are saying, give the people the goodies and don't give them little stupid handouts. Give them real money. On this Martin Luther King Day, we are declaring war on poverty. We are declaring war on the high cost of living. We are declaring war on the high prices, and we're declaring war on the inability of the government to bring relief to the people of Guyana. We have the money. It's there. Take some of that money that you're spending on stupid bridges and infrastructure. Yes, bridges and infrastructure are important, but some of them are not necessary at this moment. They're not urgent. What is urgent is to build the economic bridges. That is urgent. that our people can go in the market and afford to buy food, and afford to pay rent, and afford to pay transportation, and afford to pay. That is what is urgent. Infrastructure can be phased in. Cost of living allowance and relief cannot wait, cannot wait. We are not economists. We have economists in our midst, but we are talking basic bread and butter. Don't let nobody fool you all. And don't go off and asking them to bring down the prices. Ask them to carry up the wages. Carry up the wages. A universal basic income. Cash transfers. A cost of living allowance. When you put them all together, our people will be able to live better in our country. Per capita income, $30,000 US, according to the growth rate that is projected for Guyana. Each Guyanese is worth $30,000 US. Now we know those are numbers. We know each Guyanese is not going to get $30,000 a year. But they deserve much more than they're getting now. That is what politics is about. That is what politics is about. That is what politics is about. On this Martin Luther King Day, we are saying we refuse to live in hunger. Refuse to live in hunger. I know they call some of us hungry belly. And we have to decide whether we want to live as hungry belly people. The struggle is real, and the struggle calls for real interventions. Real interventions. We've got to make some headway. The budget is coming out today. 5-hour speech, and they're going to talk about all what they're spending. And we're going to dissect that budget. Not because we expect anything substantial to be in there for the poor and the powerless, for the darkest among us, but because we want to expose what this government is doing with our money. And to use it to mobilize ourselves, to fight for a new form of governance, to fight for a new government, not an exchange government. I don't want to exchange the PPP for the PNC. That's not my interest, and I don't think it should be your interest. If we are moving the PPP, we have to put something in place that is superior to the PPP. There's no magic in the opposition being superior to the government. We have to make the opposition superior by fighting not only the government, but fighting our opposition to make sure that they advance and support policies that will free us up economically and politically. I'm unequivocal about that. Unequivocal. It didn't stumble this time. It come out right this time. I'm unequivocal about that. I'm unequivocal about that. The time for exchange is over. This has to be the time for change. and transformation. And there must be diversity. No one party has the answer to the problems in this country or any country. Every one of us, every group, every party has something to offer. I've put before you tonight the WPA's proposals to deal with cost of living. You all hear it. It's a combination of cost of living allowance for poor people of all races. It's a universal basic income where all Guyanese, every Guyanese is guaranteed a basic income, come what may. And then structured legal cash transfers, not cash handouts, cash transfers. If you put those three together, we are going to beat the cost of living. That's our proposal. We have something to say. We have something to offer. And when it comes to ideas and proposal and policy, you don't have small party and big party. You have sensible policies and stupid policies. The PPP is a big party. And look what it is doing to Guyana. It's messing us up big time. All this nonsense about big party and small party. We have big parties because we have big races, 2 big races. And each race chooses its own party, so we have big party. But beyond our racial choices, we have other choices to make. We have other battles and struggles. The struggle for the human dignity, the struggle for a just economic being. We got to be real. We got to be real. Dr. Martin Luther King's day today, one of the great human beings that walked this earth, he left us a mountain of work, inspiration, and as we remember him today, let us fold his vision into our vision for a better Guyana. And a better Guyana would not just come from stupid rhetoric. A better Guyana must come, given where we are, where our country is. We will have a better Guyana when we have better conditions, living conditions for Indians, better living conditions for Africans, better living conditions for Amerindians, better living conditions for all the ethnic groups, better living conditions for women. Only then we will have a better Guyana. You cannot have a better Guyana when Black people are seeing the nenen. And you talk about a better Guyana? We want to look at a land of many waters, a land of 6 races, but we don't like to talk about race. What hypocrisy. Land of 6 races, but we don't like to talk about race. And races are uneven. Even when they're suffering, the suffering is uneven. I don't get into the business, but the Indian people have suffered too, and that's stupid talk. Even the suffering is uneven. have to make our country even. And we don't do that without a fight. And sometimes you have to confront the devil. And you all got to make up your own mind. I hear all kinds of talk of the PPP getting away with this and the PPP getting away with that. Let not your heart be troubled. Evil does not get away every day of the week. Looky there, looky there, looky there, look the devil down there. We've got to struggle. We've got to struggle. We've got to struggle with what we have. We can't wait until Indians get vexed with the PPP to struggle. If Africans vex today, if Africans are the ones who are feeling the heat, if Africans are the ones who are ready to struggle, we struggle with them. We can wait for some multiracial thing. The Indians and see the light yet. We must wait until they see the light, and then we join our hands together. We struggle. We're dead by then. If it's Africans alone that we have who are ready to march, we march with them. And as we march, our Indian brothers and sisters, hopefully, will recognize the righteousness of our march and recognize it's for them too. And they will eventually join. But to sit down and wait for this perfect multiracial, no. Multiracialism is something that comes into being, and it goes out of being sometimes. And sometimes you have to rekindle it by action. But I ain't gonna tell Africans, wait until we get enough Indians on board against the PPP. No, you're dead by then. We work with what we have. Because the PPP juggernaut has to be stopped in its tracks. They'll kill us. And so we have to be wide-eyed. There's a time for dreaming. There was a time when Dr. King dreamed. He dreamed in 1963. And there was a time when he moved beyond dreams. There's a time to dream of a united nation where all of us are holding hands together and singing from one hymn book. That's what we aspire to. We dream of it today, and we aspire to it tomorrow, for tomorrow. But the perfect world will only come through struggle. We are marching to Zion. That beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. We are marching onward to Zion, the beautiful city. And we got to keep marching. Marching with our feet, marching with our brains, our ideas. And hopefully very soon we'll march with our bodies. Because we are human beings. We stand there tonight in righteousness. We stand there tonight at the edge, but we're not going to fall over. They want to push us over the edge, but we're not going to allow that. That's why I say black folks ain't taking blows. I don't know at any time in the life of our people where we have taken blows. Yes, we've been beaten up, we've been knocked down, but we've never been knocked out. If we were knocked out, you and I will not be here today to stand on our own and to stand with others to fight for a better world. A better world. A better world. Tomorrow is Tuesday and we come back again to do our work. Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much. Tomorrow we come back. Ready again. Ready again. Tigers don't think, nor toads, nor rooting swine. Only man, just listen and you will know. So says Martin Carter. I love you all eternally. And it's a love that comes from a deep place. From deep within my Guyanese belly, my Caribbean belly, my black belly. We are all of that. Today, we are defined as black or Indian or Amerindians. Tomorrow, if we get it right, we'll be defined as black Indians, Amerindians, Portuguese, Chinese, and Guyanese. That's where we're going. That's where we're going. And that's what we're fighting for. Love you all.